Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Impact Farming Show. Today we have Linda Hunt, Program Director for Agknow, Alberta's Farm Mental Health Network. Welcome to the show, Linda. How are you?
I'm doing really well. It's nice and good haying weather here in Alberta, and it's nice to see all the bales going up. I'm hoping my prices are good for buying it this fall. So, yeah, things are looking up out here.
I love it. I'm speaking to a fellow cattle producer, so that's always good when we can chat cattle as we were before we started recording. So, I want to get you on camera here in our episode and talk to you about Agknow. Can you tell us first, why don't you share a little bit more about who you are personally and professionally? And then let's talk about who is Agknow and what you guys do.
My name is Linda Hunt, and I am a livestock and forage agrologist. And I work for an organization called the Agriculture Research and Extension Council on the Agknow program. I have a lot of history, I guess, working with farmers in Saskatchewan and Alberta, doing forage and livestock extension, specifically around research extension. So, working with farmers about innovative practices that they found through research and adopting them on farm. And how do I do that? And what does that look like? And working with them as they work that out. So that's my background. I grew up in southern Alberta. I've worked all over Alberta and around the Prince Albert region in Saskatchewan. And I currently live on my farm just east of Edmonton in central Alberta. My kids are all grown up, and so it's just me. So I'm doing some contracting, a little bit of farming, and enjoying my best life. So Agknow is an initiative that just started. It started in about 2022 is when we got our big grant from the province. It came out of advocacy, though, that was happening prior to that. So around 2019, we'd had a couple of really hard harvests, and there was a lot of financial fluctuations happening with canola prices and a certain big country that decided not to buy our canola for a while. And there's just lots of things that were going on. And so there was a lot of advocacy happening around farm mental health. Do More Ag did quite a bit of that advocacy. And in Alberta, we had our commodity commissions, the ag service boards, the Rural Municipalities Association, and businesses and individual farmers advocating with the government for farm-specific mental health resources and services to help people at that time. And when I talked to, we did a needs assessment right off the hop. We got some money from the province, so we decided to do a needs assessment and see what was happening here in Alberta. The research had been mainly out of Australia and Europe and in the United States, and they had just done one study in Canada, and Alberta had a small piece of that research. So we thought maybe we should reach out to everybody in the ecosystem and see what's going on for farm mental health. And what we found out was there was seeing, like, the commodity commissions and ag businesses were seeing that, like, a higher level of stress and anger coming from some of their clients as they tried to deal with some of these challenging growing conditions and marketing situations that were happening. We found it from the mental health side of things that nobody was really targeting farmers or really looking at farmers. And there had been some resources that had been developed for farmers, but not actually marketed in a way that farmers were really adopting it. So, like, for example, some of the suicide prevention training that we have available here in the province, very low uptake with our agriculture industry, specifically with the farming. And that makes sense. We have small family farms, and often the operator is the employee. So they don't have big HR departments. And the way that those are dealt with under our legislation and regulation means there's not even a legislative requirement that everybody has to take a certain amount of training, right? So getting that kind of training prioritized in a farm business is really tricky. I mean, we work pretty hard as farmers. So um, it's really important that we take whatever the resource that we're trying to the new idea or the information and get it in a form that is adoptable on farm, where it is affordable, economical, and makes sense for them. And it's addressing a problem that's really practical on farm, because Farmers are problem solvers. So you give them a solution to a problem, they adopt it. So we're using a farm research and extension sort of approach to mental health, a new topic. So
Okay.
there you go.
Excellent.
That's what we do.
I
Yeah.
love it. So you are specific to Alberta, and we'll talk about the other provinces at the end and give some resources there. But you are specifically mental health network for Alberta, and you do a few different things. Do you want to speak a little bit more about that, and then we can dive into each one?
Absolutely. So in Alberta, we have a very, especially in rural areas, we have a very grassrootsy approach to mental health. So there's not blanket services across the provinces. And so each local area kind of assesses what their needs are, and then individual people are advocating. And sometimes they're successful and sometimes they're not. And so there's a lot of resources, but in localized area and your geography really matters. Our 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 helplines and stuff. There's one for Northern Alberta and one for Southern Alberta. So where are you from and which resource line do you use? So our first thing was access to services seems to be a barrier and an issue. So let's try to build a website that kind of pulls all together all the ones for on the province. It makes it easier for farmers to navigate that landscape and their farmers, farm families, and everybody, right? So it's marketed specifically to the farming community and agriculture industry, but it's pulling those resources that are farm specific together, and then those ones that are available across the province. So it's easier to tap into those services. So that was the first thing. We wanted to improve that access right away. So the second thing we wanted to do, so we built some resources, put them on our website, and we can talk about those resources in a bit. Then we wanted to find what are the mental health supports regionally, if you want to reach out in a smaller location. So we started recruiting. Our first recruit, I think we had about 10 therapists across different parts of the province that had either were farming, used to farm, or grew up on a farm, or they had an extensive knowledge with farm clients. They had to have a master's degree and 3 million liability, and they had to be accredited. And so we found some, and they already knew about farmers and had some experience, and they were interested in what we were doing and what we were discovering through some of the research and pulling together. And so they agreed to work with us and be on our network. So we put them up. And we continue to add to those therapists in gap areas in the province. So there we have a farm-informed therapist network that's growing on our website.
It's
The other
fantastic.
thing we have is a self-assessment tool. So we find when we do our community events and reach out that there's a lot of people that don't know.
Mm.
When you've been farming and under a lot of pressure, sometimes it just gets normalized, the level of stress and stuff that we live with, right?
That's
So the
just farming,
self-assessment,
isn't it? What's
I
mental
know,
health?
that's what everybody says. It's not mental health. This is just the way it is. And I mean, it's kind of sad, but that is
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
where we get to, right? Like this
right.
is just how it is. So the self-assessment tool actually is a really good education tool for yourself. You go in there, it's all anonymous. So you just take the tool and you work your way through it. And it's like, oh, I should be looking at how much sleep I'm getting. Oh, you mean when I wake up at 2 in the morning ruminating, that's a bad thing, you know? It gives you those kind of markers to pay attention to. It makes you think about how you're behaving and how you're feeling. And so it's a really good tool. Every time we do a community event, we get a whole bunch of people using it. So I think it is useful. And it's actually the checklist that they use from the Canadian Agriculture Safety Association. So it's
Okay.
and it's just digitized, so you can do it on your phone. So it makes it easy. So it's a really good resource. So we
Yeah.
do that, and then we got funded. This never happens, but we did. We got some funding, and so we were able to pay for some research to get done here in Alberta. So we're excited for those papers to get published. They mimicked the national study, but did it more in depth right here in Alberta. And so preliminary results have been showing that we're following the same trends as national,
Okay.
unfortunately. I was hoping it was going to be like hurrah, but it wasn't. So yeah, we're learning about resiliency and the kinds of things that farmers here in Alberta are faced with. And there's some really good stuff out of there. We also do some community engagement ourselves. We do surveys on our website and get farmers that are engaged with us to just give us some feedback, and it helps to steer the way we're going. And it also helps us to truth what we're hearing from the research. Because when you do that kind of research, if you reach out, you might get a subset of the farming population. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's a lot of farmers and they're pretty diverse. Um,
Yeah.
the farms you see in Fort Vermilion have way different issues than the ones in southern Alberta, right? And in Alberta is kind of unique. Alberta, Saskatchewan, and I think Manitoba. I don't know Manitoba as well, but it's like 9.5 hours to the north for me to get to Fort Vermilion, and it's another 5 hours down to Lethbridge. So I don't think there's another province that has that big of a span of geography
Wow. Yeah.
when it comes to farming in the province. And so there is a lot of diversity in the types of farmers, the situations that they're working with, the ecosystem and challenges. Like Fort Vermilion, marketing is a huge challenge, getting your product from Fort Vermilion down to where the markets are, right? So like it's a pretty diverse province, and delivering on events and being there for farmers across the province is a huge expensive challenge. The other thing that we do is in community events, and we have suicide prevention training. So we worked with a private lady. She has a proven set of courses that she does for
Wow.
businesses and what have you. It's a bridge consulting. And so she worked with us, and this was amazing. I know I'm talking lots. I just get so excited
No,
about
that's
this.
great. This is fantastic. Yeah. Keep going.
So we had facilitators. So we did a train the trainer where we, as the people that were putting on the trainer, learned as much, I think, as the people that were being trained, which was awesome. And one of our facilitators is from just east of here, and um, we have these scenarios, and they're farming scenarios, and you have to talk them through as a facilitator, and then we discuss like how would you respond to this, and what are the resources and that sort of thing. And anyway, she had connection to some amateur acting. And so she went back, and because of the impact of suicide in their community, a whole bunch of them volunteered their time to actually do the scenarios, and they recorded them with sound effects and like,
Oh, wow.
so our, yeah, like read this to your your group um course became this fully sound effects and in a sound lab, and with
Wow.
real amateur actors acting it out. It was a beautiful thing, all for free, right? Like
Wow.
it was it was so good, and it was so heartwarming that so many people, but it was heartwarming and not, right? Because
Yeah.
heartwarming because like people want things to get better, and they want to help out, and they want to they contribute. But it's kind of at the other side of it is that's a lot of people that have been impacted by suicide that are reaching out and wanting to participate, right? So I think the suicide thing is something that we bump into in every single community event, and we start talking about our suicide awareness stuff, and the room goes quiet, and all these men and ladies that are sitting there in the ag industry, and they go like this, and they look over here, and they get teared up, and it's hard to get through those presentations because of how many people have been impacted
Yeah.
and how much of that's going on. And so it's really motivating for me and my team. This is work I think that's necessary and good, and contributes to the food security and animal welfare and environmental sustainability that all of us as Canadians value. And it's really important work that we have to do. And it is a niche community. Like there's not very many of us in ag, and
Right.
our working conditions are so unique that I think it takes a dedicated initiative to make to make a difference. So
Wow.
yeah,
You almost
those
had
are the
me
things
tearing
we're
up.
doing.
You had me tearing up because I think we all know, and if it's not personal, we know in our
Yeah,
community. It gets posted on social media.
yeah,
And the thing is, we all know how fickle Mother Nature can be, how
yeah,
fickle the markets can be. And
yeah,
when we're talking about that, we are all personally aware of how quickly stuff can change on us, right? And
yeah.
how bad financially it can get. So when you're saying people are looking down, and it's emotional. It's
It
emotional.
is, and
Yeah.
it's really tender. And like we've had those courses have been created, and we have this group of facilitators, and then we have people reaching out. And some of them we had to just like we couldn't offer, we were developing, and so we couldn't offer as many courses as we wanted to. We're hoping in this next round of funding that we get enough that we can do more of them. Because it gets expensive when you have to drive like for us to go to the piece and deliver something is like, $2,000, right? So it's
Wow.
quite expensive to get to these places, and we want it to be the same price for everybody. So we're trying to figure out that nice little margin, and I think we're going to get some really good support from the province again that'll help offset some of those costs, and so we can get there and do those things. But um, when you like one one of the people on our steering committee used to work for Living Works, which has done the suicide prevention training. It's international. It's like the best suicide prevention
Wow.
training out there. And our stuff kind of leads people into taking that. It opens the idea up, and then they can lead into taking that one. And he told me, he's like, Linda, anytime you're in a rural area and you start talking, ask people to stand up if they know anyone in the last 2 or 3 years that has passed because of suicide. And he's like, you will be surprised because, and I was like, that can't be right. But then I sat and I thought about it. How many people in my community do I know? And I came up with 5 names in about 10 minutes.
No way.
And like, you just don't even think about it. Like, you just like, oh, that's, and you move on. But when I actually started adding them up, and yeah, like one
Wow.
of our biggest supporters actually passed by suicide only last month. So like, it's really, it hits home, and it's really personal, and it's something that we got to do something about. Like, we can't just keep throwing resources out there and saying, well, they're not adopting and walking away. Like, we have to take that next step and actually be in community, talking to people, building those relationships and making it happen. So
Wow. Okay, that
mm,
sounds wow. That was just what you just said about your biggest supporter. Wow. Wow.
yeah.
Geez, Linda, we're going to be both crying by the end of this episode.
I'm sorry. I still like tear up every time I think about him, but
How can you
it's
not?
just
And it's so important. And that's why I love spending time and devoting episodes to this because we need to
yeah,
talk about it. We need resources, right? Somebody might see this right at the moment that they need it and didn't know about it before, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So we're really excited to be launching those, and we're hoping we get some really good grant support and some sponsorship to get them like farther. Let's get them out and talking to people, because we know it's not just about doing the course and having the resource, but that's what opens those conversations so you can talk about it in a community setting. And it's building that community and relationship around a topic so that the conversation gets comfortable enough that you can have the conversation with your neighbors and your peers, and as a community kind of grieve what's happening and then support each other. And that's where we want to get to. And the training is just a step into the door so we can start those conversations and get people really like, let's do something about this, right? So
Oh, I love it. And you guys, you said you first got going in 2022, right? So you're just really getting going and picking up steam and just developing. That's a lot of progress already. That's amazing.
it's been huge. It's been huge. And like, when I look back at the timeline, I'm like, oh, that's got to have been like 2019. And then we're looking at, I'm like, oh my goodness, this was only like a year ago. Like, it's been just going so fast.
Wow.
The amount of things that we've managed to pull together. It's been, and I'm like, don't get me wrong. I am getting tired. Like, this is a lot
Yes.
of work to get a new initiative going. And I'm meeting with a lot of new people that are doing like mental health innovations post COVID have been just like exploding. I don't know if you ever Google mental health, like there's so many things, and they're finding like it's over 80% of the e-mental health initiatives aren't even safe.
Oh,
And so it's not just about finding them and putting a bunch on your website. You have to like vet them, and you have to find out which are the good ones and which ones can you actually use. Like, we've clicked on things and gone in and set up profiles and then tried stuff, and like, is this useful? Is it not, kind of thing? And how long do they last? There's a ton that would come, and then 6 months later, your account doesn't work and it doesn't work. And
oh,
so
shoot.
it's really like a huge evolving landscape. And when we talk to people that are building initiatives like this, but maybe with a different demographic, they're going through the same growing pains we are. So I'm feeling like this is just how it goes, and just part of the process. But agriculture is a bit unique, and maybe like okay, I'm a farmer, right? Grew up on a farm. I have 5 generations of farming, so maybe I don't know all the other industries out there and just think I'm unique. There's
We're
always that
unique.
possibility.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
having said that,
Yes.
I am going to say that one of the things that makes doing these kinds of initiatives in the ag industry challenging is that, like, if you have mental health for first responders, right? They have a first responder association. So they might have the paramedics association, or they'll have a firefighters association. Those associations collect dues and then represent their members, right? And so they can take those industry dollars and leverage them with government grants and do really good programming.
Okay.
So there's no model for that in Alberta in agriculture. So we don't have like this industry group that collects membership fees for these kinds of things
Oh,
that you could do that
yes.
with, right? So in
Right.
some provinces, they have a really active what is it called? Federation of Agriculture.
Okay.
Not so big here in Alberta, like Ontario. I can't believe how many of
Ontario.
them.
Yeah.
Like that's tons, right?
Yeah.
But in the east, and I know Ontario and Quebec both do this, and I'm not sure which other provinces do this, but Ontario and Quebec require you in order to participate in like your farm fuel and that sort of thing to be a part of a farming association. That's how you prove you're a farmer. And
Okay.
so they can get 60% of the farmers in the Agriculture Federation just because of that, right? And the rest are in dairy or whatever. They have their other associations. And we don't mandatory that here in Alberta. We believe free choice. Pick
I
what you
see.
want and do what you want, right? So
Yeah. I
when you
didn't
do
even know
that,
about that. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
neat.
it was one of those things I discovered in our needs assessment. I'm like, how come they can get such adoption so quick like this? And it's because they have these associations working on behalf of farmers because they mandatory make them be a part of them. So
Okay.
anyway,
Interesting.
yeah, so
And
we
then
don't,
all the different commodity groups, they have dollars, but then that goes to those specific causes, right? So
well,
okay,
they,
I see.
yeah,
I
they
see.
don't necessarily have a mandate for mental health. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. They're
So,
putting
I
it
mean, we,
towards canola initiatives
yeah,
and that kind of
which
stuff,
is what it's
but not
for.
mental health. Okay. That's interesting.
So the commodity commissions, I'm going to premise that with the fact that canola, Alberta canola producers did give us some sponsorship money. So they are not opposed, but it's not like you have membership fees that come in every year that, right? So it's just like, oh, this year we're going to do it. Maybe they won't the next year, right? Like it's not that kind of base funding that just supports an initiative, right? So it's just
Right.
like, here's some money this year. And so there's a lot of things you do to get that money. Although canola, I didn't have to. They just, somebody I knew who knew them was on the board,
Nice.
advocated for us and got us a donation, right? So, but I mean, that doing that kind of fundraising and advocacy is part of the whole mess
Right.
of things to do. So yeah, it's just, and it's not impossible. It's just a different, we have to figure out what that funding model looks like for Alberta if this is an initiative that's going to be longer than the next grant. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
that's a big job. That's a big job
it's
for
a
you.
challenge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now you have
Yeah.
my brain going. I'm a business person and I started this
Oh,
media
okay.
company
Yeah.
17 years ago. So I know how much work it takes to get something going
Get
and keep
something
it going,
going.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, off camera, I'll think of some stuff for you.
Perfect. That'd be awesome.
Okay. So that was a great explanation of what you guys do. I'm going to get into Farmer Tracy mode, somebody that's in the audience. And I just want to go back over those and touch on each one of those and see how they affect farmers, where they can find it, just to kind of summarize it. And then I want to talk
Yep.
about the therapy as a good few
Okay.
questions about that. So
Yep.
you do research, and I think you said there was one done nationally. You said you guys did one for Alberta. Can farmers find the results? Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Just
Yeah.
touch on that
So
point one more time.
So we don't do the research. What we
Okay.
did is we were able to get a contract with the University of Alberta, And so a researcher there managing our projects did the research. So
Okay.
the research is the national research was coming out of the University of Guelph, and that's the Canadian Center of Agricultural Wellbeing. That's kind of where they're pulling all that research together. And one of their board members is Rebecca Pyrrhic Stephenson, and she's from the U of A here in Alberta, and she's the one that has that we did that research contract with.
Okay.
So she took the same kind of process that they did for their stress and coping one nationally and just did a more detailed one here in Alberta. And that is in process.
Okay.
And then from that, she's also done a few other studies that we worked with her to decide what those look like. So we're just waiting for those ones to be in Alberta to be published. They're not actually published yet. So we had them on our website, and we had just over 100 producers through our website and our networks, and texting all the people in our own networks, all the people that work here, got farmers participating in her surveys and that sort of
Oh,
thing. um, Depopulation, stress and coping, and farm transition are kind of the three topics that we are focused on with those with the research project. So we're just waiting for that to come out,
okay.
hopefully over the next year. And as she continues in her project, because it looks like she might continue and do more on the farm mental health topic, we'll stay engaged and make sure that it informs the work that we're doing. So what we like is when we can see something in research and verify it through our anecdotal, so our communities, and when we go in community and when we talk to farmers and people engage with us and see how they line up. And that, I think, is the best place to be when you want to give good advice to policy and program designers around the issues in agriculture. So a little bit of research, a little bit of anecdotal evidence, and that's where you get really good policies and programs. So,
Oh, good. Okay. Well, then when that's done, I'll let you know. Make sure to keep us informed here,
for
Impact
sure.
Farming Show Farm Marketer, and we'll
Yep.
help push that out for you guys if you want that
Nice. Yeah, that'd
broadcasted.
be
So,
great.
yeah. Okay. So that is the research. And then you guys are a resource. So the website is agknow.ca or .com. I can't remember which one it is.
CA. Yep.
.ca.
.ca.
So
Yep.
if I'm a farmer in Alberta, I can go to that website and find resources for me.
Yep.
That's what you
And
guys do?
so yeah, so we have a page just for farmers, and you can kind of scroll down it, and it's got the self-assessment tool. It has links to our therapist network. It has some articles about therapy, like what myth busting, and do you want is therapy actually what you want to do, all that kind of stuff. So there's those farmer kind of focused resources end up there. And then we had a page for therapists. So if you're a farm informed therapist and you're interested, or you're a therapist that's moved to a rural area and you're starting to see farmers and you want to know more about farmers, and you want to connect with us, there's a page there that talks about how to get connected and where you can find some resources. And we have the resource library on our website, and that is for anybody that has farm clients that wants content for their newsletters, their social media, anything like that. They can go there. It's all evidence-based. It's the best stuff that we can find. It's adapted from really good stuff to make it more appealing to farmers.
Okay.
There's some really good interviews that our U of A team did for us, and those ones are on there. And then we have our own that will be coming out over the next few months from the interviews that we did here in Alberta. So yeah, there's lots of really good resources there if you're trying to support mental health in the agriculture community as an association or a business. So
Oh, okay. So someone, any kind of business, if they just want material to put in their newsletter that's sent out to farmers, they can just source it from there. That's
yep,
fantastic.
absolutely.
People are
Yeah.
always looking for content for newsletters, us included. So you're on our distribution list now.
And it's also about current stuff, right?
Yes.
Like trying to find current stuff and then the stuff that's here, right? So like some of the AHS, Alberta Health Services therapists that we talked to, we're actually sending people to resources in the States. And we connected with them and said, if an Alberta farmer called or emailed, what would happen? They're like, oh, they don't qualify for any of our services. So you could go there and read their resources and stuff, but it didn't really end you in actual services. And so that's what we're trying to prevent. We're trying to keep all the stuff that is available. And maybe it doesn't have a service that you need right now, but maybe it shows us a gap and we can start poking some service providers and making sure that they get something that we could use on that website, right? So yeah, that's kind of what we do with that resource library. And
That's
we
excellent.
have there's like a Ruby's Veggies in Lethbridge, and they reached out to us and they wanted some content, so we customized a few things and sent them a little bit customization. So if we have time, we'll even work with those associations to get something that meets the needs of what they're trying to do in their newsletter. And our in-community events are like that. We have like a resiliency presentation, a stress and coping presentation. We have different ones with content. But like Irrigation District Association of Alberta contacted us and wanted us to come down. So I customized our resiliency one to fit that audience, and away we went. So we'll tweak the stuff that we have to make it really resonate with the audience and meet the needs.
Okay, excellent. So you kind of led me into my next one. I wanted to ask about events and training. So if I'm a farmer, I can go to the website. Is there a page with some events listed? Let's speak to that one first, and then I have another question for you about
Yeah.
events.
So we threw events up there and we have them. So we have our suicide prevention training. We have two of them. One is like more of an in-community one that would be more farmer to farmer, or farmer to farm other people, like you might do with your employees or stuff. And then there's one that's more corporate. It's designed for the corporate level. So like a Nutrient or a Cargill or something like that wants to do some suicide prevention training. They have similar content. The corporate one, actually, you get a license to some of the really awesome resources at Living Works, and you
Okay.
get those resources for a whole year. So there's a little more expense to it, but it's a little bit more in depth because they might meet with more people. So that's those two. So those are the trainings, and we just relaunched them again with on 16th, last Wednesday. We did one here. We're going to host them every other month at Agknow until we don't get participants anymore. But we also will book with community members like Ag Service Boards or FCSSs or whatever. And we bring the training, you bring the people, and
Okay,
we'll do
that's
that.
that
Let
was my next
suicide.
question. If somebody
Yeah.
wanted you guys to come out, because we have people from egg
Yep.
businesses, farmers, communities,
Yep.
people are connected. If they say, wait a minute, we want you guys to come talk in our community in Alberta, you guys can do that, right?
Yeah, we can and we can't.
Oh,
We
okay.
can, we can. Sometimes we need the mileage covered or some pieces of it
Right.
covered. Like it's not totally free,
Right.
which is just the 9 hours and 5 hours
Yeah.
conundrum that we have here in the province. We do all of them virtually. So that cuts down some of the, if you're way far away, sometimes that cuts down on some of those delivery costs. And we actually got some money from ATB, which is
Oh,
really nice.
excellent.
So they're interested in community resilience and supporting community resilience. So the ability to come back after adversity or to get through adversity. And we don't want to play in the crisis management. There's people that do that, but crisis recovery is a space that our therapist network, we're like really interested in being connected in community. And so we aren't there yet, but we're building. That's what we're working towards. The big dream is
Yeah.
to have some resources in-house so that if there's an ag accident where maybe some kids get killed in an agriculture accident or a natural disaster like the wildfires that we're seeing up in the Peace right now, that you could reach out to Agknow. We could activate our therapist network with some resources that they could maybe do some in-community recovery after. And Red Cross actually reached out to us early on when we didn't have capacity, and said, when we come in after a disaster, it's nice to be able to hand people off to local resources that will be there for the recovery piece. And so we brought that to our therapist network, and they were really interested in that. And so that's what we're working towards. So ATB has given us a nice little grant that's going to allow us to do some in-community events that can talk about that, build that relationship, and start that thinking in that direction. So
Wow.
yeah, we're pretty excited about that. Yeah.
Linda, do you ever sleep? Do you sleep?
Not lately.
Yeah, I was gonna say you seem like a busy lady. This is fantastic and exciting. Okay, so
Yeah,
that's the resources, that's the research, the events, so
that's
they can go on your
training. Yep,
website. And I'd
yep,
imagine if they don't see what they're looking for, they want to know if there's some kind of training, then they can just email you guys if they want to know more,
yep,
right? Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
So it's at hello@agknow.ca, and then that catches up with one of us on the team eventually. So yeah.
Perfect. So then the other piece I wanted to speak about is you have the therapist network for farmers.
Mm.
So
Yep.
you provide therapy for farmers. Now, I'm going to say, like, is it online, in person? Is there a cost? How does this all work? Let's say I'm in crisis. I go to your website, I find the line. Walk me through that. I'm in crisis right now. I'm in Alberta. What do I do?
Well, if you are in crisis, then when you hit the get support, there's the crisis stuff right at the top.
Okay.
We don't deal in crisis.
Okay.
There
Sorry. If
is
I, yes.
so
If
there.
I need
So hopefully,
therapy, then yes,
yeah.
sorry.
So hopefully you catch the right link and it gets you right to those crisis resources as fast as possible. But we do the therapy side of things. So if you're
Okay.
looking for support and you want, like, maybe you have employees that you're trying to navigate. Maybe there's some addiction stuff going on, or they're coming late to work, and there's some just like HR kind of, how do I deal with employees? That therapy might be the place to start. Like they know a lot of stuff about human behavior. Or if you are having those farm family dynamics we keep hearing about, and need some support navigating those relationships in the home, which is usually, it also means in the farm. Then those are resources that you can get there as well. Or if you're even yourself trying to deal with stress and you're trying to figure out, like, I'm in this impossible situation, how can I deal with the physical impact of this stress that I'm carrying around so that I'm not hurting my body while I work through what I have to work through, right? So there's lots of good reasons to reach out for therapy. And we wanted people to be able to find somebody that understands farming, because that is one of the biggest barriers to farmers who've never experienced therapy, to reach out to these kinds of resources. So the ones on our network, they're all private practitioners. They have different insurance that they use, and they have different ways that you can connect with them even outside of our network. What we did is we found private practitioners that are working in rural areas that have farm experience, and we put them and we market them. Like, these are the people, these are the farm informed ones that we know about. And there's a few more that have reached out to us. So we're really excited. We want to kind of expand that a little bit. And the idea is to get someone in every part of the province, so that what we find is people, they don't want the guy that lives next door,
Yes.
right? We
Yep.
want them to be at least an hour away. So there's a little bit of anonymity in there, but we want to have that first contact to be in person. And particularly if they've never had a therapist or engaged with a counselor before, they often want that first trust building. It's really important in rural, where we're in small communities. That trust piece is huge, right? So that's just a farm, rural Alberta, and I'm assuming Manitoba and Saskatchewan kind of thing, right? So having that nice network that blankets the province gives you options for how far you're going to drive, in which direction. It gives you that space
Yeah.
that you need. And then what we find is that often, once they get in and find a therapist that they like, virtual is so handy, and you don't even
Yeah.
have to leave the farm where I'm comfortable, and I can just talk to you. I can get in the combine, I can talk to you, like, you have
Yeah.
these options, right? And so as long as you have the cell service, which I know is still a challenge everywhere we go, those virtual sessions seem to be pretty popular with our crowd. So which is really awesome. Like, that's one thing that happened post COVID. It was like, forget what it was. It was like 30 or 40% of the mental health delivery was virtual. And then post COVID, it's like 90 or 100% has the ability to go. And it's really awesome, because it's like house calls. Like, they can come right into your home and they see where you're at, and there's an element to it that is different. Like, I always feel worse or different when I'm in a doctor's office. I don't think of all the things, and then I get home and I was like, oh, right,
Yeah.
I was gonna,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
being at home can be really a big bonus. So anyway, I'm getting distracted. So
That's
yes,
great.
They are private practitioners. We have, as funds allow, we have a free session program. It's paused right now, though. We're between grants. There's not clear yet whether they're going to be willing to grant us again one more for the free session program. The
Okay.
idea was to run it for a full year so we could kind of find what the baseline is,
Okay.
because we know not everybody wants or needs therapy. And some of the programs, like in Ontario, what they did is they got a EAP program, and they just paid for all the farmers to have an EAP program, which is, when you have, 50,000, it's kind of expensive, right?
Yeah.
So we're like, can we figure out how many of them are actually going to want therapy and pay for that many every year instead of like all of them? So our approach was like, let's do the awareness and adoption, figure out what the baseline is of what would be reasonable, and then tackle it from okay, we need to have this more at a public investment kind of phase. That was what we wanted to do. Just the way grants roll out and stuff, we've only had this one open since September. And we ran out already and it was just like a nice steady, and then it just started climbing right before seeding. So,
Beautiful.
which makes sense that we're making our financial decisions, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow. Okay. So then you're waiting to find out if you guys will have another grant to see if that's covered. So, two spots I want to go with that really quick. Sorry to jump in there, but
yep,
I'm a farmer right now. So, I think free is great because, of course, that takes the financial pressure off. But you guys are just getting traction and hopefully you'll get that grant again. But I think there's huge value in the fact that somebody can go to agknow.ca, find the list of therapists, and if they're in a space where they need therapy, at least that takes a huge barrier off. Because could you imagine, Linda, if you were sitting there, you're a farmer, you're not researching these things all the time. Like, where do you go? And then you're like,
where do you
oh,
start? Yeah,
downtown Calgary. Yay, I want to talk to
yeah,
Billy the, I'm
yep,
not saying they
yep,
don't know, but there's
yep,
huge value in that. So right there, that makes it easy. You can find the person. I love the fact that you can pick your person, because if I was to go for therapy, I probably wouldn't take Steinbach, Manitoba. I'd probably, if I had to see somebody, like we've heard about farmers all the time, we don't want our community to know. So you go, oh, okay, that person, I got a good
yep,
feeling about that person. Grab that person,
yep,
do an in person, and then from there you can do sessions. And if I was going to do it, I'd hop in my truck, go for a drive to town and take it on the phone if I didn't want my family to know or whatever, right?
yep.
I'm just kind of
And
brainstorming
that
here.
through. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And the
And
other,
one thing I was going to ask you, part two, Linda, is um, you had mentioned you guys
yeah,
are seeking community support and sponsorship. So I know a
yep,
lot of companies are always looking for ways to get behind programs like this. Mental health is important. So if there's somebody in the audience, corporation, even farmers, I
yep,
did the episode with Jerry Friesen for the Manitoba
yep,
Farmer Wellness Program,
love
and
him.
I
Yep.
actually put it out, and I think I'd retweeted something about they were looking to find sponsorship. I think it was on Mental Health Day. And I had people immediately saying, well, can I donate? Because
Oh,
as,
nice.
yeah,
Yep,
because
yep,
farmers, we know, like we
mm,
started
yep,
the episode off, we might
yep,
need that one day. And if we're having a good time, having a good year, and we want to donate, why not donate to a cause like this versus
yep.
Cancer Society? I mean, we can do what we want, but this is near and dear to our hearts. So, where I'm going with that is if there is a company or a farmer that wants to sponsor a session, is that possible?
Yes, we
Okay.
have we have a crowdfunding campaign. Alberta has
Oh,
this really cool program where if you're not for profit and you fit criteria, you get enough donors and the right amount that they'll match the
oh,
first part. So it's like dollar for dollar. So we managed to hit that. So we're going to get the matching from the province, which is amazing. And then, but we left it open. So if anybody wants to donate, they can donate through our crowdfunding, and you can find the link on our website, and we'll put it in the show notes that we're going to send you
okay.
as well. We also have people just sending us checks. that happens.
Right.
So we get a little bit, but we're getting little bits here and there, not enough to keep all the staff and make the things happen. So we're looking for those bigger donors. And those bigger donors or sponsorship, you can reach out to us at hello@agknow.ca, myself directly at linda@agknow.ca, or yeah, there's lots of ways. We also have a donate page and a support us page on our website. So has all the nitty gritty in there. We reached out to our ag service boards because their resolution is what really got us going. And a number of them have engaged with us. We've been doing presentations and have been getting little bits from the ag service board. So it was really nice to see how many municipalities are concerned about the welfare of farmers and want to see the program continue. So lots of great support out there. No
Good.
big corporate nation yet, but we're so new. Like
Yeah.
it's so, you know what I mean? Like
Takes a
getting the
while.
word out, getting the whole thing together. And I have to tell you, I am passionate about the work that I do. I am not the best at fundraising. It's not my favorite thing to do. Asking for money is tricky.
Yep. I'm a salesperson. I know. I mean, your fundraising is selling. It's the same thing, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not always easy because it's not going to be one call and then people donate or buy,
Yeah.
right? It's continuous. And for you guys, you're just getting going and getting traction. So that's going to take some time to get relationships and establish stuff and grants and
Oh, and we have a sweet project that we're trying to get off the ground right now.
oh, yay.
So can I tell you about it? Do
Yes.
we have time?
Yes,
Yeah,
I was
okay.
going to say, can you share yet? Yay.
Yes, I can. So when we did our needs assessment, we found out that depopulation, which is losing all the animals on your farm, either because of a disease,
Oh,
like the avian influenza that we just went through, or it could be because of a natural disaster, like the flooding that was happening in BC. When that happens, it's really stressful on the farm, right?
yes.
Especially the disease one when there's regulators involved. Because it's like, what happens to my employees? And some of those are people from overseas, foreign workers. What happens to foreign workers? What are the support systems for foreign workers if all of a sudden the farm doesn't have an income? And a lot of people don't think that, right? And the farmer is like, what do I do? And then there is no connection. There's no one to tell them how that works. Then what am I going to do if I have this disease in my barn? Some of the barns had to be burned, some of them have to be sanitized. And so then how long until production's back up? It could be 2, 3 years. And when we talk about chronic wasting disease, sometimes that's never. And those farms are depopulated. And that farmer in his mid-40s, there was one that's connected to our network, didn't get off the couch for a very, very long time. And the impact that that whole process has on them is really hard. So we can't stop depopulation. Like we can't stop natural disasters. We cannot just stop diseases. It's just that's part of farming and agriculture. But we can change how we treat people through the process. We can make it more compassionate. We can make sure build in some supports. We can build in somebody that you can go to as a liaison worker that could maybe navigate the mental health system as well as the regulation system so that when you get into that circular thinking, like, I don't know what I'm going to do, you have someone to talk to. Right now, there's no one to talk to. It's not the regulator's problem. And actually, a lot of them talk to their vet, and their vet sort of feels like they should support this farmer that they've been working with.
Right.
And it's really hard on vets. And so then now we have a vet shortage. So the ones that go through a lot of depopulations, they end up quitting early. It has a very emotional impact on people when you have to do mass slaughters like that.
Oh,
It's emotional.
oh, I can
So
imagine.
Western Canada has had more depopulations because of diseases than any other place in Canada because we have the most livestock, right?
Right.
So
Makes
between the
sense.
horses and between chronic wasting disease, avian influenza, there's just, and then all the provincially ones. I didn't even get into the provincially ones. I just even looked just at the CFIU ones. So it's a really hard thing for people. So let's build a compassionate system. What does that look like? Who funds it? Is it someone in the public system that understands depopulation, or is it our therapist network that gets really good at depopulation and understanding and supporting farmers? How do we activate them? There's so many questions, right? So depopulation is one. The next one was farm transition. And you say this in any room and they all go snicker, snicker, and nod their heads and everybody rolls their eyes because
I'm
it's like
laughing.
something that we all deal with, right? Like
Yep.
all of our farm, well, I shouldn't say all, but 90, whatever it is, I think it's like 96% of the farms are family owned. And that multi-generational thing is just a thing. And so you read all of the research and everybody's like, it's farm family dynamics is the biggest barrier. Farm family dynamics. You hear that everywhere. All right. So we're not getting better at succession, but we are getting older and there's more of this happening. We still only have 9% of the producers are under the age of 35 in Alberta. The age of the older ones are getting older. We see a whole bunch of women stepping into farming in their 60s because,
Wow.
you know, they're happening. Dad's not making it. Mom's got the farm, and now we're working through transition, right? So there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of family issues that are coming out of farm transition. And actually, farm family dynamics and farm transition is like the most of the farmers that are coming to our therapist network. That's what our therapists are telling us. That's a huge thing. So we
Wow.
connected. Um, we have a really awesome industry advisory committee
Okay.
that's made up of farm business professionals. It's made up of commodity groups and associations, and it's made up of farmers themselves who have lived experience with suicide or farm transition or depopulation. And so
Wow.
we're talking about it with them. And we are going to, we're working on addressing some of these issues from a multidisciplinary aspect. So what we have is our therapists, and they're talking about farm transition from the feeling side. How does it feel? And how do you communicate with your family? And how do you get okay with the circumstances? But they don't have the facts. And then we have our farm business guys, and they're dealing with the facts, but they're not dealing with the feelings. And they're like, do you know how hard it is to work with farm families through farm transition? Like, there's just feelings everywhere, right? And
Yes.
so, from our farm business guys, they're like, we need a referral network where we can help people get the help that they need to get to the next stage of the business side of it. And the therapists are saying we need a network of farm business people that have been vetted that we can refer our clients that are dealing with their struggles on stress around their money so they can actually get the help they need. So we're like,
Good for
whoops.
you.
So
You
that's
go,
where we're.
Linda. That's
I
amazing.
know. Isn't that a beautiful idea? I'm so
Yes.
excited.
I've can I jump in there? I do the impact farming show. I've done it going this is our 6th season, going on 7. And the underlying why behind why I started this, the deep, deep why is transition planning, tearing family apart. I've seen it, I've had it happen. It's all around us. And that's why I started this show. And every time I talk to somebody about transition planning, and we have some great guests, I'm like, it's all it's just so it's big for families and it's so much feeling and emotion and then they don't know the steps. I'm like, how? And it bothers me because it's so important. Our industry needs to carry on and needs to transition. But I
Yep.
even talk to these individuals and I'm like, I don't even have the answer. So how does Suzanne and Bill, farmers in southern Alberta, who are sitting on a lot of money, one farming child, no other children. Like, how do they even know where to start? And there's such a disconnect between all the pieces. My closing point on that is no doubt that they're coming around and using therapy because all you're going to do it's just
Yep.
it's a void and you're just going to spin and it's going to
Yep.
ruin the family, it's going to ruin your peace. So wow, keep me
And
posted on
on the
this.
therapy, it does that too. They keep
Yeah.
going around because they can never get to the facts part of it. And like
Right.
a common story, and I can't say that it's the most common, like I don't know, just from my own lived experience living in farming Alberta and working in farming Alberta my whole life,
Yeah.
I can say a common um, story is I'm 85 years old. I would love to retire, but I don't know how.
Yes.
Because if I turn it over to my son, who's already 65, and I turn it over to him. He can't afford, and he's not in a position to be able to buy it because it's gone up so much. The equity price has gone up
Yeah.
so much. I can't just give it to him,
Yes.
but it's kind of shrinking because I'm 85 and I'm not exactly expanding at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not maybe a business unit anymore. My equipment's getting kind of old. I'm, using my walker to get out. I know this farmer. He uses his walker to haul buckets out to his cows. Like, I'm not kidding.
Shoot.
And his biggest thing is he's like, I want the farm to transition. So the feeling is I want it to transition. It needs to go on. This is part of my legacy. But there's no business model to do it.
Yes.
And so it's just sits there and it doesn't happen. And so it does transition when they finally pass. And that's the only safe way it can because he needs that cash flow to keep him going because he did not build himself a little nest egg for retirement. That is so common, right? And
Linda, you
often it'll
just
jump a generation just because the 65-year-old's like, by now I am just going to go and retire in Arizona. You keep the damn farm and the grandkids maybe step in. Or else it goes to a bigger farm, like they just sell it off. So like that is the thing. So what if that old man, that 85-year-old that actually would like to rest,
mhm,
what if he talked to a therapist who understood that there was no business model there? And so instead of just talking about it, they could come to maybe let's work on accepting the situation, the truth of the situation where you're at.
mhm.
So let's get to acceptance. And now let's bring in some other family members and let's talk about what we're going to do because we have this big amount of equity and we have to take care of grandpa. And then how can we what can we do so that he feels that his legacy is continuing? How can we transition this in a way? How can we talk about this as a family? How can we get on the same page with the real facts and make things happen? And if you can't transition, like my dad's farm was not able to transition, there just wasn't enough there. So, like, to get to a place where you can just accept that. And so I have my little piece of heaven up here that I love to death, but it's not an economical unit. So I'm doing these other jobs to make it work. But my son's coming up and he wants to. So I'm like, how can I leverage with you, buddy, and get you a little bit farther down that process, right? So, like, there's always hope. There's always things that can be done. It might not look like what you had in your heart, but it doesn't mean it has to be bad, right?
Mm,
And it's just getting people to have those honest conversations about what's actually there. And I think the therapist side of things, those counselors, they have some of those soft skills that maybe our lawyers and accountants might be a little, lacking in their skill set. And our lawyers and our business people and our accountants, they have those really good, let's lay it out on the line and get some solutions going. And between the two of them, I mean, we got to have a rock star in there somewhere. And we have these amazing therapists. I'm going to tell you about Joanne, and she's like a shout out to Joanne on our network. So she worked for co-op banks,
okay.
um, like a credit union, sorry, and did their ag files for like managed the ag files.
Oh,
And
wow.
then as a job became a therapist, and now she's on our network. I'm just so
Oh,
pumped. So she has huge, huge understanding of the financial and from a lending side, what's going on in the industry. And now she has some therapist skills.
no.
It's so beautiful, right? So like these people exist. Let's find them. Let's get them all in a room. Let's talk about this and let's see what can we do, what can be done, what further and deeper understanding if these therapists had it that would help. And how can they meet each other? These two different kinds of professionals meet each other and get comfortable enough that when they have a farm client that they feel comfortable saying, you know what, I think you need to talk to Joanne,
Yeah.
right? Or I think you need to talk to Fred, and
Yes.
they can each other back and forth. And maybe we can get some of these families the help and the support they need to actually move the needle for once because it's been stuck for so long and it causes so much distress in our communities.
It
So
does.
let's do something practical, something that makes sense, something that solves problems, and connect these people so that we can have better referrals for our farmers and our farm families and more successful transitions. And
Wow.
that's what we're going to do. Isn't that amazing?
Linda, where did they find you? You were a gem. You're such a beautiful soul with such a passion for helping farmers. I just love it. And the fact that you just, when I do transition planning episodes, I get so, it's great because the people that come on are amazing and they give great information, but it's so disconnected and farmers will never piece it together. And we have so many farms that need a transition. We have
Yep.
so much stress costs coming at us that, oh, I'm not I believe in the impossible, but some of these farms you look and you go, oh, this isn't going to end well. And not only for the generation leaving, I can feel the pain because I don't have kids, but I'm in that weird age, like I'm in that age where I get the plight of the parents and the common sense and the financial, where call it 10, 15 years ago, I didn't get that. And some of the young kids might be like, well, why don't you give us the farm? Well, they don't realize mom and dad has to live, and mom and dad
Yep.
don't want to
Don't
say
want to
that.
be
They're,
impoverished.
yeah. And they're
Yep.
embarrassed and and maybe they don't even have a good handle. It just, oh, it just like,
And and there's pieces of this that we don't think about. Like you go to your accountant and your farm business guy, and he's like, okay, yeah, we'll transition and we'll do this and we'll do that, and you sell your house and you go. And the attachment people have to their home where they raise their kids,
yes.
right? It's hard. That's hard. And so those people have to accept the idea. They have to process all of those pieces and what that's going to mean for how they live, how they feel, their memories. They're walking away from a lot when that happens. And even when you give it to your kids, you're still walking away from every time I go through that room. That's where I drew out the line for my son for how tall he was, right? And that's where we played mini sticks hockey and we put a hole in the wall. Like you leave that behind, right? And so okay, here's your plan. Well, is it going to get executed? Because now there's a whole bunch of stuff to process, like
Right.
tons of stuff and to
Right.
think about.
Yeah, and then you
Yeah.
have the mom stuff and then the dad stuff. There's also even that selfish, I don't want to quit. As long as I can
Yeah.
walk, I want the next son. And I've seen this many times, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes it shoots themselves in the foot and it doesn't get transition because they're stubborn and they don't want to give up. Right. But there's also that I'm still healthy. I'm not ready. But this generation, oh, Linda,
Yeah, it's huge.
it's huge.
You should be on our panel. We have a multidisciplinary panel that we're putting together. So yeah, there you go.
I am a connector of people, an amplifier of voices, a pusher of messages. So if I can in any way help you with those pieces, I'm not an
Yeah.
expert, but that's what I say. I amplify voices and get
Mm.
messages out and promote with my show. So I
Yeah.
was going to say, if I can help you, keep me posted on that. That's important.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's unbelievable that you just connected that dot. Why are farmers stressed right out? Transition planning, of course, because it weighs on everybody's mind. The
Every
dad,
decision.
isn't it?
Every decision
And
for
it's
every
right
person
there.
involved. Yep.
And
And
you
you
think,
can't bring it up, right?
right.
Like that's the thing, right? If you
Yeah,
you bring it up and what about this idea and he's not in the right space to hear it or she's not
totally.
like and it's such a like a kind of a
Well, and
situation, right?
I've
Yeah.
always said that I can just see it. It's so delicate because you think of human nature. Let's say dad, let's call him Bill, and he's grandpa by now, whatever it is.
Mhm.
He does have good intentions. Maybe he wants to stay, but he does have good intentions, but he doesn't know what he's doing and he doesn't know where to ask. So let's say son who's 65 comes at him. What is the natural reaction? Most of us in this world aren't A+ communicators. I am not. I can feel
Yeah.
cornered. So 65-year-old son comes to 85-year-old dad. He has good intentions, but he doesn't know what to do. So he explodes and nothing
Yep.
happens. And then this generation's stressed out because their whole livelihood is in jeopardy and they don't know what dad's doing. Dad can't communicate it. And then maybe you have a third generation already chomping at the bit. Like, I can see
And then
why.
just add in the layers of the normal things that we face in life. So now maybe dad is a drinking problem.
Oh,
Maybe mom actually hasn't been home for a long time. She's like still in the books, but she's like, I'm done with this place, right? And then
right.
you add in dementia and what people go through, and then chronic pain. Let's add that in there. And the older we get, the more chronic pain, the more dementia kind of might be handling there. Maybe there's some health issues. Like there's so many layers, and
And
it
then
gets
add
complicated.
in, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry to jump in there, and then add
Yeah.
in the craziness of farming. A drought hits.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? When you're concerned about how you're going to pay the bills and make the farm go, wow, we're really going. This is like a girl chat, but this is valuable. This is the kind of
Yeah.
uncensored conversation I've wanted to have. I'm frustrated. Now you look, sorry to finish my thought. Okay, whatever's happening here, and then a drought hits or flooding. Let's go with drought because then you get a fraction. You're hardly paying the bills. Well, this generation's going, oh, wow. And this one's going, oh, wow. We don't even know if we're going to have a farm. Let's put off transition again. It's
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
a mountain high challenge for these farm families. And honestly, when I start talking about it, I'm like, how do I solve the problem? Right?
And there might not be any um, solution as far as solving, like, let's give everybody a business model. Like there might not be that kind of solution, but there should be how can we accept the truth of where we're at and make good choices that build relationship with our family, that
Mm,
support each other and our community so that we can have strong, vibrant communities. And then whatever that transition looks like is what it looks like, right? Like
yeah. There's so much there.
sometimes that transition is sell it in the middle of the night and it's gone to a different country. And I've heard of that one too. So like
Oh,
you just never know.
oh my
If it's too
goodness.
stressful, we'll just sell it out and go, right?
Wow.
So like there's lots of opportunity, I think, to have some really good in-depth conversations and build a network of people who have a higher or a deeper understanding of what's going on and better connections to help people get the help they need to do what has to be done.
Mm,
That's what I think. I think there's huge opportunity there, and we want to be a part of that. So we're well on our way. So
I love it, Linda. Wow,
yeah,
you're
it's
amazing.
gonna be good. I think. I think
Do
it's
you
gonna be really good.
Oh, they are lucky to have you. You know what? I have found when you are launching something like this, which is a company, and I've launched a company, you got to have a ton of energy and a ton of passion and a ton of know-how too and knowledge of the industry. So they're lucky to have you. They really
Yeah.
are.
Well,
Yeah.
well, there's so many connections. Like Erica, the Agriculture Research and Extension Council has been around for a long time. And so there's lots of connections that we have in the industry just right there. And then like I've been working in Alberta a long time, so there's lots of connections we have right there. And then it's easy to meet people. Farming is a small community. So I think yeah, we just have to get the idea out in front of people. I think people will buy in. I think it's a good opportunity for people that are like FCCs or the AFSCs of the world that are looking for sponsor or working with farmers. This is an opportunity for them to get in and help us get these conversations going. And maybe we can push that needle, right? Like wouldn't it be amazing to actually have an impact on what's happening instead of just talking about what is happening and saying this is horrible? Because I mean, those farm transition discussions, they don't always end in I'm mad and I'm walking away. Sometimes they end in someone choosing to end their life. Like that is not an unusual thing to happen in these discussions. It's very tender. It's very close to home. You're dealing with people's aspirations and their lives and their multi-generational pride and then competition with their neighbors and their identities. Like there's a lot of things to think about.
I
Yeah.
was just going to say the word I had in my mind, even myself as a business owner, my identity, and I'm a farmer, but my identity is very much entwined with Farm Marketer and the Impact Farming Show. And as much as we say it's business, it's the farm, it's different when you're blood, sweat, tears, generation, land, everything you know,
Yeah.
everything you've done, everything you've worked for is
Yeah.
it's not just a job. I've worked jobs before. You can
Yep.
leave those. You can get the next.
Yep.
And yes, I'll say that it is just a farm and it is just animals and it is just land. And definitely it's not worth a life. But I understand
How
why,
connected.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
people get so wrapped up in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's fascinating. I'm really excited and I can't wait to work with people and to see what comes out of these discussions. I think it's gonna be good. Everyone that we've talked to, we pitched it to our industry advisory committee just about a week ago, and they were just like blown away. So I was like, okay, we got a good one now. So yeah, we're starting to do some of the planning and resourcing is the next step. Sending out some feelers and talking to people about what we want to do and see where it goes from here. So yeah.
Okay. Well, you just so you know, and I'll tell you again after, but you have a media partner to help you promote it through our website and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll
Nice.
help you in the way that I can in episodes when you guys want to
Yeah,
promote. So this is
that's
important to
good.
you, me, our industry. So we're here.
Awesome.
Okay. I think, wow, this has been a beautiful episode. We've covered a lot. We chatted about the therapy, how that works. Literally, if anybody wants to know more about resources, research that's coming, programs, therapists, they can go to agknow.ca, connect with
Yep.
you guys if they don't see what they're looking for. Now, the one thing I like to end with, because we're dealing province specific, it's Alberta. And when I did the episode
Yeah.
with Jerry and Roberta and all them at Manitoba Farmer Wellness, I always do a call out. If somebody is not in Alberta, do you know of some programs? And of course, you don't have to
Yeah.
list all the details. We'll put in the show notes, but do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, and so like the reason that we're seeing a few of these for our mental health programs coming out across Canada is because they've actually identified it as one of the topics that we can address through the federal, provincial, territorial transfer agreements. So you're going to see some initiatives in each province, and what they all are looking for is how can we get affordable, accessible counseling that's farm informed. So that's happening across the provinces. And they're also looking for what are some of the resources and courses and trainings that we can do to support on the suicide stuff. And then there's like an amazing program out of Quebec. It's called the Sentinel program. And so a few of those provinces, Ontario and BC for sure, have already started translating it to their province and are trying to get that going there. And I'm trying to reach out to, not trying, I am reaching out to the suicide prevention people here in Alberta to see if we can't also bring it here. It has really good results. So that's going on kind of that. Those are kind of like in general, that's happening across the province. So in BC, it's AgSafe BC, and they have therapists on their network and they have access to therapy through that. And they're doing some really beautiful work with seasonal workers and getting them counseling in their home countries of origin counseling, which is really amazing. I don't think anybody else is doing that. So that's a really cool approach that's happening in BC. Agknow here in Alberta and Saskatchewan, it's saskagmatters.ca. And they have some free counseling available through their website and some resources and people that work there. And then Manitoba, you already mentioned Jerry and was it Roberta? I forget her name.
Alberta, yeah.
Yeah, it was Roberta. Okay. And then, so from Manitoba, we go into Ontario, and it's the Farmer Wellness Initiative or the Agriculture Wellness Initiative in Ontario, and they have free unlimited counseling. They're a rich province. Man, they can do cool stuff. So they have free unlimited counseling. They also have suicide prevention courses and general kind of mental health for farmers courses that can happen there. So you can check them out. Nova Scotia, they have the wetalkwegrow.ca. So check them out. They're working on farm informed counseling as well. And in New Brunswick, they have the Farm Talk Care. And I don't know much about their program. I know it's just getting started. So I would definitely check them out if you're in New Brunswick. And so PEI has the oldest farmer wellness program in Canada. It's been going 20 years or just over 20 years. And it's called the Farmer Assistance Program. And they offer counseling for farmers, and you can reach out to them through that program. So yeah,
Wow.
that's them all. Yeah, they're beautiful people, all passionate, and I just love working with them and connecting with them. So yeah, it's great
Well, thank you for sharing that. We'll put those in the show notes as well.
for
And
sure.
I look forward to tracking your progress and seeing how things are going
Yeah,
and celebrating
yeah,
with you and helping you broadcast the message on our show and our website for marketers. So,
that's
Linda, I
awesome.
think we covered everything I want to ask you. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I think I mentioned sponsorship a
Yeah.
few times. I think I did my due diligence on the fundraising. There, I'm done. I don't
Okay,
want to
I was
mention
gonna say,
it.
other than a strong call to action on
Yeah,
anybody, and on a serious note, I know it has worked well. I mean, I don't know all the details, but when they put it out, I have seen farmers personally say
yeah,
that yes, I would like to donate, and whether it's a session or part of a session, because we like to here and there as we're able to
yeah,
donate to different organizations.
yeah,
Why not
yeah.
do it to an organization that helps our community? So, final call out on that one, and I'll put a link in the show notes as well for that.
Perfect. That'd be awesome.
Linda, you are a gem. I am so thankful we chatted. This has been
Yeah, it's a
fun
good
and
conversation.
informative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You guys in the audience, if you like this episode as much as I did, like it, share it, and get it out there. Check out agknow.ca. And if you can and you're willing, support the farmer sessions. That would be amazing and make a big difference for a farmer in need. So if you can, great. If not, share this, get it out there so we can drive awareness of the organization. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Linda, and we'll see you all next week. Bye, guys.
See you later.